Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my opinion on the best mid lane champions for Season 5, Patch 5.2. Now, there's been quite a few changes to mid lane lately. DFG got removed, Fizz got a pretty big nerf last patch, Syndra got a nerf to her early game a few patches ago, so my list is quite a bit different since the last time I did one, which was for Patch 4.21. So let's get right into the video. At the number 5 spot, I have Orianna. Pros to Orianna are she's got a really strong team fight because of her ultimate. If you can land a multi-man ultimate in a team fight with Orianna, then you're going to win the team fight most of the time, especially if you can get it off on the enemy squishy targets. She also scales really well into the late game, and she's got great utility as well with her W, her E, and her ultimate. She's also a pretty strong laner because of her passive and because of her E. It allows her to trade really nicely in the early game, and she's got pretty good mobility as well with her W. Cons to Orianna are she is quite mana hungry in the early game, so I definitely recommend picking up a tier on her and get that stacking as quick as possible. And also trying to convince your jungler to hand over blue whenever possible. And her ball can also be hard to track at times, especially if you put it on your teammates in team fights. Next up on my list, I have Talon. Pros to Talon are he's got one of the fastest 100 to 0s in the game. He's just such a strong assassin right now in my opinion because his burst damage isn't easily negated by items like Quicksilver Sash and Zhonya's, and his burst is so quick that it's really hard for the enemies to react to him, especially if he uses his ultimate from a distance and jumps on his target. It's just going to be so hard for the enemies to react, and he's just going to be able to burst them down so quickly. He's also got really strong CC with his W and his E, and he's got pretty good wave clear as well with his W. And if you build Ravenous Hydra, the Tiamat is also really good for clearing waves. He's also got stealth with his ultimate, which allows him to either engage really sneakily or it allows him to escape. He's also got a very short cooldown ultimate, so you can always be using that to assassinate your target whenever it's up. Cons to Talon are he is quite mana hungry in the early game, especially if you're spamming your W often, and he is weaker in the early game as well. He doesn't do too well against ranged champions in the first few levels, but when he hits level 6, he does quite well. Next up on my list, I have Nidalee. Pros to Nidalee are she's got really strong poke with her Q. She's also an insanely strong roamer. I'm gonna call her the best roaming mid laner in the game because she can get from mid lane to like either top or bot lane the fastest, especially if she builds like mobility boots. You don't even need mobility boots though on Nidalee because her passive is so strong for just getting around the map really quickly, and her W in Cougar form allows her to get there even quicker. She's also got really good burst. If she can land her Q and then go into Cougar form and pounce on her target, she can do a load of damage. And her passive can now proc in the jungle. I played Nidalee a few times lately, but I forgot to try this out. I assume that you can make some pretty nice escapes with this, and jungle Nidalee might be pretty good right now as well. I'm gonna have to try this out when I play her next. I just forgot when I played her last, which is why I don't have any gameplay of it. But I assume you can make some pretty nice escapes with it. Her heal is also really strong for the laning phase just to stay healthy, or in team fights, once you get a bunch of AP, come late game, it just heals for so much. And you can just heal your AD carry as well. When you're pushing towers, I definitely recommend healing your AD carry because it's going to give them a load of attack speed as well. So you're going to be tearing down towers even quicker. Her W also gives vision if the enemies walk over it, so if you learn how to place your W in the high traffic areas, you can get some pretty good vision on your opponents, and if an enemy squishy target runs over your W and you're pretty fed, then you can pounce on your target and burst them down pretty quickly. Cons to Nidalee she is quite mana hungry, especially if you're spamming your Q, so she is a champion that I usually build tier on because of that, and she is a higher skill cap champion as well because her spear is her main damage source and it is a skill shot. Number 2 on my list for patch 5.2 is Azir. Pros to Azir he's got a super strong late game. If you know how to position your soldiers correctly in teamfights as Azir, then he can do a load of AoE damage. He's also a pretty strong tower pusher because of his W, and his ultimate is so strong. In my opinion, it's one of the best abilities in the game if you know how to use it correctly. Sometimes just the placing of an Azir ultimate in a teamfight can single-handedly win you the fight. It can also be used to disengage, and it can be used to trap enemies in certain locations like a Baron or Dragon. He's also got really good mobility with his WE combo or his WQE combo. He can get over pretty much any wall in the game. There's some walls that he can't get over obviously, but he's got really strong mobility because of that combo. And he's also really hard to zone in lane because of his soldiers. He's got pretty decent CC as well with his Q and his E, and he's got great wave clear because of his soldiers. Cons to Azir he is one of the higher skill cap champions in the game, so I definitely recommend trying him out in some normals if you haven't played him before heading into ranked, because learning how to position your soldiers is really vital. And also learning when to use your ultimate and the correct positioning on his ultimate does take some time to learn. And he is weak against some assassins. For example, Zed, Talon, Akali are champions that do quite well against Azir because they can get over his ultimate. And if he doesn't use his ultimate at the correct time, or if he wastes his ultimate in a team fight, then he's very vulnerable to those assassins. So I definitely recommend picking up Zhonya's if you're going up against an assassin who you aren't very confident against. So number 1 on my list for patch 5.2 is Ahri. So after these recent buffs to Ahri, I do think she is the best mid lane champion right now. Her Q buff is just so strong. It enables her to get really easy poke off in lane without having pretty much any counterplay to it. I was playing against a Veigar, which you're gonna see in this gameplay here, and I could literally just poke him down in lane so easily, and he wasn't able to do anything against me. Whenever he tried to use his stun against me, the speed buff from my Q just allowed me to get away from it. She's also got super strong mobility because of her Q and because of her ultimate, and she's got great pick potential because of her charm, and she's still got pretty good burst even though they removed DFG. She's got great wave clear as well because of her Q, and she's got pretty nice sustain in lane because of her passive. She also has relatively lower mana cost than most mid lane champions. At max rank, your Q is only on 70 mana. And she is strong even if you fall behind with her, because if you can find a pick with your charm in a team fight on the enemy AD carry or on the enemy high priority target, and you can burst them down, or if your team can help you burst them down quickly, then you could just change the momentum of the game really quickly. Cons to Ahri she is really skill shot reliant with her Q and her E, so if you're not too good at landing skill shots, then she might not be the best champion for you, but if you do take time to learn her and you can get used to landing her charm, then she is a very, very rewarding champion. And the DFG nerf did hurt her a little bit. It hurt most mid lane champions, obviously, that built DFG. It didn't hurt her as much, in my opinion, as other mid lane champions because she did get that really nice buff to her Q. Some honorable mentions for this patch include Katarina, Twisted Fate, Annie, Akali, Swain, Zed, Lissandra, Cassiopeia, and Xerath. So Katarina is still a really good mid lane pick. She could have been at my number 5 spot, but I decided to put her on honorable mentions for this patch. She does have some weaker lane matchups, and she is countered by hard CC enemy team comps. However, if you are a Katarina main, then you can basically pick her into anything and still find a way to get fed and just snowball the game, because she just does an insane amount of burst damage and an insane amount of AoE damage as well, and she's also a reset monster because of her passive. Twisted Fate is definitely one of the harder mid lane champions in my opinion. If you can learn how to pick your gold card on the first time around, then he's a really strong pick, but if you can't, then you're missing out on a lot of his potential. And his ultimate is really strong. If you can get a good ultimate down bot lane when you hit level 6, you can just snowball the game really hard. However, his ultimate can be used against you sometimes if you place it in the wrong position, or if you're not new to Twisted Fate, then you might end up doing that. So I definitely recommend playing him in some normals and getting used to him before you head into ranked, because he is definitely one of the harder mid lane champions in my opinion. Annie is definitely one of the easier mid lane champions in my opinion. She doesn't have any skill shots and she's fairly simple to play. Her Flash Tibbers stun combo is also really strong. I was playing against an Annie a few days ago and literally she killed me 3 times because of her Flash Tibbers stun combo. So it's just a really strong it's a really strong combo and it enables you to find really nice picks. If you can get that combo off on a couple targets in a team fight, then you're pretty much guaranteed to win that team fight if you're ahead. Akali does have a little bit of a weaker early game, but she is really strong when she hits level 6 because she's got really great roaming potential because of her ultimate. So just try to survive the early game unless you're an Akali main and you know your matchups really well, then you can go aggressive in the early game. But if you can just survive the early game and get some nice roams off, then she does snowball really hard and she does a load of burst damage. Swain, in my opinion, is one of the best champions to pick into assassins. He's a really good pick against them because he can use his Zhonya's to negate a lot of his damage, and while his Zhonya's is running, his ultimate will be running as well, which will be dealing damage to the enemies and healing himself too, so he's just a really good pick against assassins because of that. Zed is one of the harder mid lane champions to play as well in my opinion, but if you do know how to play him well, then you can carry really hard as Zed. He does have some counters like Quicksilver Sash and Zhonya's. Zhonya's is one of the biggest counters to him because his burst damage, unlike Talon's, isn't instant. It takes a while to happen because he has to use his ultimate, he has to channel that, which takes about like a second, and then he has to get some auto attacks off on the enemies after that. So it does take a while to get his burst off, which is why he's not like on my list. I think that Talon is the more reliable mid lane champion right now, but he is a really good pick. He's got great mobility and great burst damage, and if you can get around Zhonya's and Quicksilver Sash, then he's got really strong burst. Lissandra, in my opinion, is a pretty good mid lane champion. I like her better for top lane, but she does do well in certain matchups in the mid lane, and she's got a load of CC, which is just really strong for team fighting. She can also set up some pretty nice ganks in the early game because of her E, her W, and her Q. She can go in with her E, she can root them with her W, and then slow them with her Q, and she's basically guaranteed to burn the enemy's flash at least if the enemy or if your jungler is ganking for you. Cassiopeia is definitely a high risk, or she's not a high risk, high reward champion, but she is harder to play than most mid lane champions. However, she's very rewarding if you can play her correctly because she does a ton of damage, especially come late game. You can get up to over 1000 AP on Cassiopeia come late game, and if you can lend your Qs consistently with her, then she can do a load of burst DPS damage with her E. And not to mention her ultimate is also very strong. If you can land a multi-man ultimate in a teamfight with Cassiopeia, then you can, your chances of winning that teamfight are going to be very high. Xerath, in my opinion, is the best poke mid lane champion other than Nidalee right now. He's got really good long range poke because of his Q, his E, and his ultimate is also very strong for getting some nice burst off on enemy squishies in team fights. He is harder to play though because he is very skill shot reliant, but if you can get good at landing all your ultimates and you can just land your skill shots consistently, then he is a very strong poke siege champion. So that is all for the video, guys. If you enjoyed, then be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in my next video.